white people or black people, we are individuals. We need to get individuals to access property in South Africa, access wealth, access progress. So individual property rights is actually something that should be entrenched in the Constitution. And not only that, I think that that has been consistently been avoided. The fact that individuals are not receiving proper title deed in South Africa it's been continued from colonialism to apartheid and to the current government. So we have a different perspective.
Okay, we'll come back to your perspectives in detail. Shall we go to you, Mr. Dlamini?
No, thanks. I think as EFF we're clear from the onset that we are calling for the expropriation of South Africa's land, all of it, without compensation. We call for that so that we can restore the dignity of our people, because as long as our people continue to be landless, we remain the conquered nation by white people. Because you can't talk to the issue of land and you don't bring the issue of color between black and white. They came here, they took our land. But you know, when it comes to the issue of land in this country, we've got two problems. The first problem is the same white people who refuse to give ownership of our land, who refuse to give ownership of our economy. But they do that because they know that in South Africa we're a pretentious society. Even the reconciliation that they talk about, they know it's a pretentious reconciliation. We are the only country in the world that went to war because of land. What do we get when we achieve victory and reconciliation? We get to exchange meals in restaurants with white people. I don't remember in history going to war to fight for his own land that he fought so that he can sit with white people and enjoy meals in the restaurant. So that is our first problem. But our second problem is the ruling party. You know, the reality with the ANC is that now it's no longer led by revolutionaries. It's just led by cowards. Because they are the government, they are sitting here, the minister what she's talking about, that expropriation bill. We sat on it, we said we must, the current Section 25 is not workable. We must call for constitutional amendment so that we can expropriate our land without compensation.
Okay, we'll come back to your solution pretty shortly. Mr. Faltain, have we had courage in confronting the problem of land reform in South Africa?
Thank you very much. With due respect, let me just correctly pronounce my surname.
Oh.
It is Filtane.
Filtane.
Not Falte. That's somebody else in town. I've already said with due respect.
Right.
I know I just mentioned it on the phone, so people may not have gotten it correct.
All right.
Not at all. We've actually been very, very coy, you know, in our approach to it all. Too soft. And yet, if you remember the 100 years during which as many as 10 wars were fought, from 1779 to 1878, blood flew. We're talking about the frontier wars here. And the kind of reaction that we're showing, both as government as well as civil society, makes a big joke of the blood that flew as a result of those wars. Dispossessions were taking place, and yet we're so soft about it. The social upheaval on its own speaks volumes. People have got no clue what sort of social values, you know, they should be adhering to. And citizenship, without land, the half part of definition of a citizen is gone. Mm-hmm. We need to correct this like yesterday.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Professor Msimang, what is the view of the IFP with regards to whether we are approaching the question of land sanely? In other words, with courage in South Africa?
Thank you, this program director. The position of the IFP on this matter is that no, the question of land is not faced boldly. But I cannot say we have not faced it boldly, because we are not the government. It's the government that must deliver. However, we have a position. And our position as the IFP is firstly the rule of law. We believe that whatever is done should respect and defend the rule of law. The situation in which we find ourselves today with regard to land stems from agreements that were reached by representatives of all communities in South Africa at CODESA. Those agreements from CODESA formed the basis of the constitutional democracy we have today. It's based on those agreements, and whatever we do should honor those agreements.
I see.
That is our position. The rule of law, and also the constitution that we have today, which is heralded by the whole world as the most liberal constitution, is born of the agreements of CODESA. So if then we tamper with this constitution, we shouldn't go to the extent that we undo the agreements of CODESA, which eventually legislated that 1913 is the cutoff year, which legislated that there should be a Bill of Rights, and one of those rights is a right to property. Thank you.
Professor Msimang, I want to take what you've just said, particularly your reference to CODESA, and taking from what Dr. Nzimande had said, if not Dr. Mutina had said, about the elephant in the room being land, propose to panelists here that perhaps the elephant in the room is the global economy. And I pose this and put pressure on my panelists here to carve out a solution directed at this elephant in the room by proposing before you that perhaps, given what Professor Msimang is saying, what the country is honoring is the situation that it finds itself in, whereby we have to operate within the global economy. We have accepted operating in the global economy, and yet on the other side, we have pressure to redress the injustices of the past, which are biting on our people. How do we do this balancing act? Not so long ago, we had as a country been nervous because of being the potential ratings that could have been low. Particularly, I want to start with Mr. Mqedama on this. Okay. Given that we are operating within the global economic forces on the one side, given that you recognize that land was taken from black people, how do you continue to operate in that economy, or are you suggesting that we don't, and yet on the other side, expropriate maybe? What do you suggest?
Firstly, the global economy is a system of oppression, of exploitation, of imperialism. In fact, today, we can see even the UK is trying to get out of the EU. There is a whole referendum running there. Serious nations are delinking themselves from the imperialist relations. Because if we accept the global economy as a fact, which is immutable, we're demystifying white power. If we're revolutionaries as we are, we argue that we must get out of imperialism, run our countries and our continent on the basis of our interests. So the argument of global economy should not arise if we are serious. What is global economy? It's a few people sitting in Brussels, sitting in the US, controlling the globe, controlling our interests, controlling our resources. Our first fight is to get rid of them. That's why we must protect the BRICS project. We do support it, and we know some people go to London to take instructions from the West, even including the ANC. They take instructions from the West to destroy the BRICS process because it allowed the World Bank and the IMF to continue imperialism. We are anti-imperialist, and we say the land question should not be a matter to negotiate with white people or with the global forces. It's our question. We must just take it.
All right. Ms. Lolo, your party is in power.
Yes, it is.
It is faced, it knows the cold face of being torn between the economic interests of the country as well as having the pressure to do redress. What is your take in terms of operating within this environment, and what exactly are we doing with this expropriation bill that you were referring to?
Well, what we're doing with the bill is ensuring that everything that is looked at in terms of land expropriation has the national interest at heart. Now, national interest can be very broad, but in broad terms, what it actually means is that for those that have been dispossessed of land, for those that do not have access to land, because having access to land can open up doors for many things. We could be dealing with issues of bridging the inequality divide. We could be dealing with issues of economic emancipation of our people. We would be dealing with issues of unemployment because people will be able to employ themselves and plow the land that they live in. But my view is that when we talk about Section 25 of the Constitution, that we shouldn't only confine ourselves to Section 25, subsection 7 only. We need to have an overhaul of the system, because if we postpone dealing with the land question any further, there is a possibility that we will face a much more difficult question that we might not be able to resolve as a country.
Overhaul to the extent that your colleagues next to you are saying, which is to start redressing and giving land back?
Well, we can do the things that we're expected to do as a government within the confines of the law. And the people that are sitting here are lawmakers, most of them. So at the point at which we look at these issues, and I'm glad that it's the John Lange Institute that is leading this debate, because he was an activist that fought against land dispossession. So it is the right platform at which this is being discussed. And again, he was the first president of the African National Congress. So it is our duty to ensure that as the discussion progresses, it progresses in a fashion that will be able to deal with what it is that our people in general would require of us to do as a government in passing legislation through Parliament, but also dealing with issues that might have a backlash effect on us. But the first thing that we need to take into account is the aspirations of our people that we all sit here and represent.
Okay. Professor Motala, let me come to you with this question.
Yeah. Well, the elephant. The elephant.
I'll come to the audience just now. But Professor Motala.
The elephant in the room is not the global economy. The global economy, the elephant in the room, in the global room. In this room, our room, the elephant in the room is the land. Any state that is, any government that, any party that is in charge of the state of government can only solve the problem of our country, of our economy, by nationalizing the land. Azapu gives notice that the first move, if we should take power, will be to nationalize the land, to legally own all of the land on behalf of the people of this country. And then to think about what role that land plays in the economy, what role the land plays in the cultural interests of our people, what it plays for education. You can develop all kinds of policies around the land and the role of the land. But first and foremost, the land must be owned on behalf of the people of South Africa by the state. You have to go back to that issue. That is the permanent elephant in the room. Until you kick that one out of the room, you're not going to be able to do anything.
Okay. Mr. Walters.
Yes, well, I think globalization it's not a question of whether it's evil or good. It's a process. It's human interaction across our globe. So it's government's job and society's job to prepare itself to, on the one hand, negate the negative aspects, the issues of exploitation, relative bargaining power, but also to make use of the opportunities inherent in globalization. Take a country like China, for example. But in the last 20 years, poverty levels in the world has fallen with more than 50% because a couple of big economies, who used to be considered third world, have managed to actually utilize globalization, opening up markets for products. So I don't believe we should just talk of a dichotomy of here's the problem and here's another problem, and two are necessarily clashing with one another. If land reform is properly managed, for example, coming up with agricultural combines, where people, shareholders own the land in it, and you are able to access markets in the rest of the world, you can actually help drive land reform. It actually could help become self-funding. But if I can make a couple of other comments, I would love to debate that with you.
We'll come to that.
Can I just make a comment? I thought the ANC was unequivocally supporting the Constitution. That's what we are told in Parliament, so I just would like to make that clear.
And your point is?
No, I just wanted to be absolutely clear on that. So let's be very clear on this. The framework, the two major parties in Parliament believe land reform can be dealt with within the framework of the current Constitution. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, all right. Mr. Filtane, I think this time I pronounced your name well.
As if you're from Kosan.
Before I come to Mr. Dlamini, who is itching, talking strategically now about things to be done towards land reform, what would you say they are?
Okay, let me start off by confirming that before colonialism took place, there was an economy in this country. It was the type of economy that suited the times, those times, let me put it that way. Land-based, people-driven, and so on. But with the Frontier Wars, as many as 148,000 units of cattle were taken, 11,000 sheep, and 200 horses. Just looking at today's prices in our area where I come from in the Eastern Cape, that is stock worth 1.5 billion. I've not allowed for calving or for losses, just at today's prices. Let's start from there. Now, how did we come to be in this situation? Colonization. When those were taken away by the settlers, we lost it all at the time. Now we're faced with a situation where the economy is driven by the world. When the Chinese market crashes, South Africa crashes. And yet at that time, those people in Africa didn't depend on how strong the economy of the world was at the time. That's the background. So what should we do? And remember, the World Bank pressed successfully for the willing buyer, willing seller situation. And South Africa fell into the trap, and that collapsed after 10 years of trial. Further down it. Now let's look at the proposed solution. We need to create an economy in such a manner that South Africans buy their own produce and not so much rely on how the world reacts to our produce. We can create capital, business capital, where people are given employment such that they can buy. But with high rate of unemployment, there is no business capital. To finish it all, the capitalists are busy fleecing the country right across Africa. It's estimated that something like 1 billion rands leaves the shores of Africa in evasion, in tax evasion. So we need to localize it. Thank you.
Mr. Dlamini, tinkering with who buys so that we can keep the money in the country, would that be sufficient solution for you in terms of doing sufficient balancing act on the land redress question and preserving our interests in the economy?
Yeah, no, thanks, but I think let me first unpack these things of global economy. You know, this English normally confuses our people. Before you go to those things of global economy, first you got colonizers, these imperialist groupings. They are on a deliberate agenda to uplift their own people. Even if you go back at 1652, Jan van der Beek arrived there with a deliberate and clear agenda of uplifting his own people. 1913, it was the same story. 1948, the apartheid government, it was the same story. So what we need to do, first things first, as South Africans, is to take, that's what we are calling for as AFF, is to take deliberate steps. It doesn't matter at whose expense. Anyone who's on our way, you must just move. We must take deliberate steps to uplift our people, our black people. That's where you start. We are clear that we want to expropriate land so that we can create industries. South Africa is, as it is today, even on the agricultural sector, we are the net importers of food. That means we are a nation that cannot feed itself. So for any nation that is serious about development, if it can't deal with basic things as feeding itself, there's no chance of that nation it will get out of the imperialist those arrangements. So that is the first issue. So that is why we're calling that we must get the land. On top of that, we are calling that we must take the land so that we can create industries. Right now, even if you look at what the ANC is saying, that they're talking industrialization, the first thing that they did, these white people, when they got here, and then they discovered minerals, they put the rail line. That rail was coming all the way from the mines, either in Kimberley or anywhere else that's come from, straight to the sea. Even today, the ANC has never built 1 kilometer of rail that goes across the land to show that they've got interest in industrialization. So everything that happens is that they allow our minerals. They must go from Kimberley to Durban, and then they must go back to the land, and they think we are fools that they know we are interested in this industrialization. That is not correct. Okay. So that is what we need to do, so that we can create our own industries, so that we can stop depending on this global economy that everyone is talking about.
Okay. We'll take 3 questions from the floor just now. We will, but let us press Professor Msimang on this question of doing land reform within the confines of the law. If we are agreed that what we've seen so far has not been sufficient progress, what more needs to be done within the confines of the law?
Thank you for the question. As I have said initially, that this is based on the agreements reached at CODESA. If we throw these through the window, out of the window, we will have no base for the constitutional democracy that we have. It will be baseless. The only solution would be to have a second CODESA, which will focus on the land question and reach fresh agreements on that. Because surely the agreements that were reached will favor one party and not the other. They will not favor the dispossessed, because a lot of dispossession happened before 1913. So, but if we say now it was wrong at that time to make 1913 a cut-off year, let us go back to CODESA and have only the question to consider. We can have another CODESA to look at the economy and to say, what do we do about the poverty of the black persons in this country?
All right. I am going to come back to my panelists and ask a question directed at the June 1913 issue. I know for some of them who feel that we need to overhaul the process so drastically that we actually need to restore land, nationalize, it may seem immaterial. But on the question of the June 1913 technicality, I will be asking whether we particularly need to direct something towards that by way of revision, and what would be an alternative suggestion. But before we come to that, to my panelists, are there questions from the floor that I'm just going to take 3 for now. Gentleman at the second row there, the first gentleman, and then I'm going to come there, gentleman in a blue t-shirt, and then I'm going to come here, gentleman with a BLF t-shirt. I don't know where the ladies are, but there are gentlemen that I have pointed to because they raised their hands. We'll start there.
No, thanks very much.
A question concise, please.
Okay. My name is KwaZulu-Natal. I'm a young person, and I believe that as a young person in South Africa, we've been delayed too much. As young people who are very angry.
Can you start again so that we can record the question?
saying as young people who are tired of the delay. It has been 21 years the ANC has been in power, which means a child that was born in 1994 is in third year now in university. You can't tell me that 22 years it has taken for the ANC, it can't bring back land to the people. That is why we have joined the EFF, because it represents us as the young people, as the future of this country. I want to ask Fighter Marshal that when the EFF is in government, because I know the EFF will take and be in power, when they are in power, what they are going to do to transfer land, I don't want to stand on media and tell us that we can go and just occupy any land and we just go there, or there's going to be a police. I just want to know what is the plan of the EFF when in government.
What is the plan for you? Okay. The gentleman there, please move the microphone to there, at the back. It was that gentleman. Or were you raising your hand for him? Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
I would just like to ask the lady from the ANC. There are processes of land reform, but with maladministration, corruption, and all these shenanigans happening in the current government, what do they think, or how are they going to do about land reform? Because this question is a big ask for them now. They've been 22 years in power now, and this question is a big ask for them.
All right. The gentleman at the front here.
Good evening. I'll refer my question to the DA representative there. I'll just remind him that our land doesn't belong to the Constitution. The land belongs to the black people. So I found that a lot of times when we deal with this question of land, DA always refers us to the Constitution. And I'll challenge DA and tell them that they must think about the land question, because as it is right now, they could see that the black people who are supposed to be owning the land, they are not owning it. The majority of the land is owned by the few white people. So I'll challenge DA to stop beating about the bush about this question, because it is frustrating us black people. So they must come back to the society and speak the truth, that the people they are representing who happens to be their main constituents are the people who are still owning the land. The DA must come in front and declare, like all of us black people, that we are prepared to reconcile with white people. The DA must go to their constituents, to the white people, and tell them that we want our land back. And I'll also refer to the EFF. Their president.
Your point is taken. When I pointed at you, please introduce yourself. But EFF, other than pointing people to a piece of land and possibly grab, with the instruction grab, which you probably won't do, what will you do exactly, asks the youth.
Okay, no, thanks. I think from our founding manifesto, it's clearly outlined that one, we're talking of expropriation of South Africa's land for equal distribution in use. We are saying the state must be the custodian of land so that we can avoid these rich people who come and buy this land. But what we are saying is that the state will be the custodian of land, so anyone who wants to use the land, he must go and apply to the state. He or she must go and apply to the state and must be clarified, determine what are you going to use this land for. So that is the approach of the EFF, so that the state can grant you the license, like it happens with the minerals, with the minerals right on the MPRDA Act, that you must apply, then the state must give you the license so that we know as a state what is that land used for. Because currently, some of the land, we are known that even if you look here in Stenger, as you go to the Stenger direction, those farmers, when they bought those land, they said no, they want to to grow to grow sugarcane and everything. But all those land have been changed now into private residence of rich people. So that is why we are saying you need to apply from the state, and then you must clarify what is it that you're going to use the land for. So it won't be just sorry.
Will it be the state that grabs?
No, the state is not grabbing. It's in charge of the land. Okay. The state is in charge of the whole society. It's not grabbing. It's in charge because we would have taken political power from the ANC.
Yes, I'm ANC. Ms. Lodlo.
Yes, ma'am.
There is fear that we might respect the law, we might do everything within the confines of what exists now and tweak it as appropriate, but there is this thing called maladministration and corruption, which is seeking to halt the wheels of government. What is the ANC going to do about that insofar as land reform is concerned?
Before I could answer that, could I just deal with the issue of whether or not the ANC still respects the Constitution?
Quickly.
I don't think it's a question that really needs to be answered, but I feel I have to, because it also goes back to the issue that has been raised from the DA side. We have had this Constitution for 20 years. Nothing stops us from amending provisions of the Constitution that could help restore the dignity of our people. So I think that should be the starting point. Any constitution that you have is open to amendment. And that process is a parliamentary process that needs to take effect at some point. Part of what we have done with the expropriation bill is to do exactly that. How do we restore land to the rightful owners? Because the Constitution doesn't say that we shouldn't do that. The cutoff date is of utmost importance. Whether we go to a CODESA to deal with that or not is a different matter, but the cutoff date is very important. We can't talk about land issues and only confine them to the 1913 Land Act and beyond. Because after 1930, lots of things happened. After 1913, lots of things happened. Before that, so much more happened. The scramble for Africa in itself is a point in case where we sometimes tend to forget that there was colonialism. My fellow MP from the UDM actually said that. There was colonialism before apartheid.
Yes.
So let's start looking at issues way beyond what we see before our eyes. The issue of corruption, the ANC is dealing with matters of corruption. There are people... It might be a joke to the EFF and their friends, the DA today, but fact of the matter is that we are dealing with issues of corruption across the board. Where corruption exists, let us deal with it. But on issues relating to land, yes, but on issues relating to land, let us find a lasting solution for our people together. And the lasting solution is not just about reform. It's about ensuring that land is given back to those from which that land was dispossessed.
Okay. Mr. Walters, there is a concern that the DA loves the document called the Constitution more than the people.
Because we love the people, we are constitutional Democrats, because the Constitution is what guarantees that the EFF can go to court against Parliament and fight the ejection. It's the Constitution that guarantees that the gentleman could make the statement that he made earlier, that we have freedom of speech. That's why the Constitution is important. It's not because it protects any interest. Let's also draw a distinction between good policy and the Constitution. The problem, in our view, is not the Constitution. There's nothing that stops us making good policies that give land to anyone for whatever historical reason. It's not the Constitution isn't the obstacle. We mustn't think in terms of the framework that's been set there. Let's think about it like this. 90%, and this is now according to the 2011 report that was given to our Portfolio Committee in Parliament, 2011, we can talk about some other stats as well. The government's own figures show that 90% of land reform projects have failed. That is not the Constitution's fault. That is let's not talk politics. It is the government. It's a policy. It's policy errors. It's a management error. Let's look at the commercial land in South Africa, agricultural land. worth round about 190 billion rands. Some people say up to 280 billion rands. 80 billion rands was misspent in the last 22 years in one department alone, dealing with land reform. That money alone, ignoring the budgets from other departments, that money alone could have given us a transformed agricultural sector. So that's why I'm saying I don't believe the framework of this debate should only be a constitutional clause. Let's talk about why land reform itself is not failing. And then the last point I want to make, and in fact I think Member Fultani will appreciate this. One of the reasons that individual property rights was stopped by colonial governments, one can take the Mfengu people in the 1880s, were because they were out-competing the colonialists, the white farmers at the time, and they were actually, state intervention took place, communal law was enforced, individual property rights were taken away to prevent people from actually challenging the hegemony in our economy. So we believe that you cannot have land reform without actually empowering individuals. It's not a community that owns your house. You should own your house.
Okay. We will take a net break for now, but when we come back, we will examine those issues directly. We will go possibly to Professor Msimang and find out what exactly are the tenure options that are appropriate, Mr. Mkutama, that befit the restoration, because the restoration may not necessarily have, or the dispossession may not have happened with regards to individuals, maybe to communities. We will examine the question of the technicality of 1913 and see whether it takes us forward. For now, let us have a stretch break by way of ad break. Thank you.
Sorry, Pa. She needs to go. No, I agree. I think it's too large a panel. And I feel like also just allow everybody to just, it's like any...
You see, the debate is beginning to move towards universal reform.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into a DA framework and land maybe we need to disrupt. Maybe we need to disrupt. What about disrupt? Because this agenda is going here. What
Agreed. It's an important point. But you must also raise it. It's a very important question. It's a proper question. This is what they are saying. Yeah, if this was happening right now, they are not suggesting anything new. But you must ask them, say, in fact, they are not suggesting anything new. We are saying we must take land from white people. That's the only thing that must happen. So why violate?
This was exchange. because this was an exchange of their land in Kumba. Yes, you are banikwa layer as compensation. Now you buy
also
the
feel the same.
compensation.
But no, this allows them to go on and on. Tower.
Hey, Tower, shall we Tower? From my tower, great, yeah.
Tower.
Yeah. No
Okay.
sharp towers. Tower. Bulela chairperson now. Chairperson, they go. As a tower. All right.
All right. Can someone take a mic and hold it?
Yeah, remember, can I make a well tower more remote?
Something wrong, a mistake.
Prof, how long more are we going to go on?
I'm sad.
Usushil
Okay.
wathi me too. Into yakubalekela usushil wathi me too yakudakiya.
No, what about the more time?
Thanks.
Can you set
I
it
love
down,
your
please?
sticker corner.
That session is still coming. Yeah, what's serious?
Beke isuke boy parliament. Beke isuke parliament. Ubonta akekho ongezuhleka manje.
We are back at the Dube Institute and we are mulling over the land question. Mr. Mkutama, it is very easy to talk about restoration of land, but there is serious evidence, even if the archives are sometimes untrustworthy, and even if oral evidence is sometimes accused of losing certain crucial bits of information. But there is serious evidence that land was taken in many ways from communities who owned land as communities, most of them headed by traditional leaders at the time. That speaks to different tenure options at the time. Given that you are so eager that land must first be returned to black people, how exactly will it be returned to people? Would it be returned to communities, tracking their tenure options of that time? Or is there a particular method that speaks to modern day tenure options by which people will be restored their land?
I think that's an academic question. Let's have a proper debate here. People have made propositions which cannot be sustained. My friend, for instance, from the EFF says, let us go to the Minerals Act as an example to give us land. The Mineral Act has failed to give us minerals. How is it going to give us land? So we need to think through. We can't have a CODESA. CODESA for what? All black people agreed. Land is in white hands, is stolen hands. 22 years later, land is not returned. We must exclude white people and talk as black people. You, ANC, are in power. Please, and the EFF and politicians, don't say to us, vote for us when we are inside parliament, we'll change the law. Why don't we go now as black people, take our land? What stops us? You, as the ANC's government, will protect us as we take our land. That is the only debate we must have.
Can I have land as Mastole? And will you have land as Mr. Mkatama?
Of course you will.
Or are we going to have to find our traditional leaders? Are we going to be communities when we do that? There is a whole lot of things that changed. Not only are we talking about restoration to people, we are talking about different tenure setups.
It makes no difference how the land was taken. The land was taken. You want me to speculate now? Nicely, and I can do that. I can give you an academic paper. Tenure arrangements. We don't. You want us to talk about how we're going to eat the bread which is not here. The first thing is, can't we get our bread back?
To whom?
From white people. I mean, the problem is clear. It's white people. These people, the ANC is in power. The ANC is in power. And we are here sitting on here, and Marshall will talk to his people also. The ANC is here. All we agree now as black people, as Funabelu, as black people who must agree here.
All right.
Because land is stolen, you agree, we all agree land is stolen. So if property is stolen, why aren't we just going to get back that property? The ANC becomes our problem when it stops us from taking land. The EFF becomes a problem when it says we must not take all the land. We must leave white people with productive land. We say, black people, the only agenda is one agenda. The agenda, Yom Shaba.
Okay, Mr. Mkatama.
And we shall be free.
I'm trying to push a strategic question here. Professor Musala. I'm talking about a receiving vehicle for land. There are clearer positions that say the government must receive land and it shall decide what is to be done. And I'm talking about a situation where if a particular party, such as I hear in this corner, prioritizes black people, in what format are we returning the land to black people? As communities, in which case we can't leave our traditional leaders, or as government, or as Mastole and Professor Musala, one by one, an equal piece? How are we to receive the land back?
First of all, we must accept that we have betrayed our people.
Yes, we have
We
done
have
that.
aborted the revolution.
Yes.
Now, in view of the fact that we don't have the revolution any longer through which we should have taken the land, we have the state. The state is a representative of the people. The state functions through a legal system. The state must nationalize the land, the whole land, on behalf of the people. After that, what you have is use and access to land. Ownership of the land belongs to the people through the state, through the law. The rest is how you use the land. Economically, culturally, entertainment, church, however you use the land. But the land must be expropriated totally and dispossessed from those who own it now, because they do not have a legitimate right to own it. It is stolen land, as he says.
Okay, all right. Mr. Filtane, a very direct question. How are we to...
By the way, CODESA doesn't work. We shouldn't go back to CODESA. Reform does not work. There is no time for reform. It's either we go back to revolution, or the state uses its legal power to take back the land.
Point taken. Mr. Filtane, how are we to receive or restore land to people? And I'm being careful not to say to black people, to your party, but to people, in a way that somewhat does something different to something that has been tried so far. To receive it as who?
Sure. Thank you. We're here to try and correct what was done in 1913 and subsequently in our constitution. That's where I start.
Yes.
Now, 1913, as well as the Clause 25(7) of the Constitution are pieces of legislation that are not founded on the real principles that should drive legislation, what we call common law, which is the first law in any civil society, in any society anyway, because it was not the majority of the citizens of the country in 1913 who decided on that. The values were not driven into it. It's the same thing with the Constitution, that 25(7). It was not based on common law. Had the people been given an opportunity to express what they wanted to do, how they wanted their land to be, to be disposed of, we would be having a different piece of legislation. That's where I start. Now, given that we are now in this situation and we need to find a solution, one, I would say that my own leader has on many occasions suggested in Parliament that we should have an economic CODESA. He has said that many, many times. And that would be a prelude to a situation where a law based now on the wishes of the majority of the people can then be enacted. And that piece of legislation should reflect what the majority of the people want. Now, careful here. If that process, that CODESA, is driven, or the majority of people there are political parties, we could be heading for another trouble. Let the civil society decide what they want, because we're here as representatives of the people. So we must give them as much prominence as possible. I am not here to prescribe exactly what should be done. I'm saying let's create a platform and let the people of South Africa decide their own destiny. Not driven by political parties, because we are just doing numbers here.
Okay, we'll give the people that are here a first bite at what you're suggesting, but I'm coming to you, Mr. Dlamini. Mr. Walters.
No, let me just say that it's an
Can I ask you a specific question?
I thought it's the same one.
The issue of June 1913 as the DA.
Well, let's
Shouldn't
first see
we
what
revise this, because it's a technicality that blurs the circumstances in which people had started beforehand to be progressively dispossessed?
I think we need to put 1913 as a deadline into context. That's a framework for making land claims. It's not an obstacle to come up with policies that can look at other historical situations that predate,
including reviewing the Constitution.
Well, I don't believe it's necessary to review the Constitution. I've made it very clear.
Not even on the question of 1913.
What in our Constitution prevents us from making policies for the acquisition of land of any community in South Africa with any form of historical prejudice or discrimination against them? There's nothing that prevents us. It's a framework for land claims. It's a framework for it's something that guides a particular process. Now let me put it to you like this. Let's say you go before 1913. I actually like the idea of a CODESA. I think there should be a continuous CODESA.
Obviously.
There should be.
Obviously you'd like it.
It's
We've got our chance.
Part of the Constitution is protecting my freedom of speech too. But the point is this. If our governmental systems, our parliamentary systems, our participatory democracy systems were working properly, good policies would be formulated. We would have been participating. This type of thing would have been happening every day. I don't believe the Constitution is an obstacle for us making policies that address exactly the problems that are being raised.
All right. Professor Msimang, 1913... and specifically the month of June 1913 is in the Constitution. If we are to work with the idea of tweaking within the bounds of the law, which you emphasized earlier, what would you suggest we do with this technicality of 1913 if your party also feels it is inappropriate?
I will still stand on the point I made initially, that we will need a second CODESA. Because what is in the Constitution is born of the first CODESA. So if we deal with the Constitution and take away the basis of that Constitution, which is agreements at CODESA, then we are working in a void. It's not going to work. So we have to agree that 1913 favors the possessors, but not those who were dispossessed. So we do need to go back, but let us sit at CODESA and do it. If we deal with the Constitution, there is a difference of approach. If it is dealing with the Constitution, it is in Parliament, and when we do not reach consensus, we vote. But at CODESA, we can only work with consensus.
Okay. All right.
You don't need to have to say, because I have got the majority, my wish will prevail. So a second CODESA will be necessary to say, okay, we agreed on this. It was a mere experiment. It hasn't worked. People are still landless.
All right.
Now, let us have a second CODESA, which will ensure that people will get back the land they lost.
Mr. Dlamini, it would appear to me that there are sometimes polarized views on the issue of land redress. One suggests that we are working within confines of the law, which we have all agreed has flaws, one of which is often cited as the willing seller, willing buyer. The other extreme is that we take the land, whether to government or in a way that other speakers will still push for a clarity as to what the vehicle is. But are we not omitting an important step in between, which is to work quite intensively with what tweaks need to be made? And I'm posing the question to you as to whether the June 1913 is not one of them, that we look at that, and if you agree with the fact that that is one of them, what would be the alternative date?
Okay, no, thanks. I think firstly we must accept as this panel that EFF presents superior logic in all the debates that we see, because these political parties, they are not coming out clear to say what needs to happen. That's why Andile is just talking everything that he wants to say, because he knows clearly that he will never run any government. So as government in waiting, that is why we are very clear in terms of what needs to happen with the issue of the land. That take the land and give it to the state. Let the state be the custodian of the land, including dealing with the question of 1913. Because as you said, that some of the archives are not there, some of the information is misleading. That is why we're saying, instead of wasting time and try to deal with those issues, let the state capture the land, all South Africa's land. It must not be land before 1913 or anything. All South Africa's land, and let the state be in charge of redistribution of the land. So everyone must come and apply for the license. So the issue of the MPRJ that Angela is talking about, it's not true that it's not working. It's just that, as I said initially, that the current government, they are not courageous. They are just scared of white people. We sit with them in Parliament and say to them, this Section 25 is not workable. Let's go and call for constitutional amendment. Our constitution, by the way, has been amended over 17 times. So this thing is doable. But what they do is that, no, EFF, we agree when they gossip in the corridors. But when we move into Parliament and say, now let's take action, they don't want to do that. So the issue here is not even the issue of 1913 or anything. It's the issue that this country needs courageous leadership, which EFF is that leadership. So this issue is going to be resolved very soon of the land. We won't be sitting here and talking.
I'll take four hands, but before I take four hands, I'm going to take two panelists. The first one is not the government in waiting, it's the government. It's one representative that is in government. Is what is in the expropriation bill sufficient? If in the corridors there's sometimes murmuring that something has to be done, and even agreement that something has to be done, what is the extent to which the something that needs to be done is? Does it also include tinkering with 1913? And to where? To what date?
That's why I said earlier on that looking at Section 25 in its totality, for me, is the way to go.
Okay.
Rather than saying that 25 subsection 7 is what we need to be dealing with. Because the willing buyer, willing seller principle has not worked. The ANC itself has admitted to it that this has not worked for us. It has not worked for our people. Now, sitting here with other political parties that are like-minded on the issue of dealing with the land issue, that's the type of conversation that we invite. That's the type of conversation that would help those who are representatives of people in Parliament talk to one another in dealing with the issues of taking the land back to its rightful owners. We can't have a situation where we rely on certain sectors of society to determine how things should go. There are many ways of testing the views and opinions of our people other than a CODESA on the specific land on the specific issue of land. And I think, as the DA once said, Niafana ANC and EFF on issues relating to land. Yeah. But on this particular one, I would agree with my colleague from the EFF. There have been many amendments to the Constitution. We can't be discussing that today as if it is a problem to talk about amendments to the Constitution. That the Constitution will be amended from time to time is a given. Society evolves. The environment changes. Every Constitution goes through a phase where amendments happen. It will not be the first time. Why do we need a CODESA for this particular one? Let's grab the bull by the horns. Let's get an input from our people, not as represented by certain bodies necessarily, but the views of our people. Let's solicit them in whatever way we want to do it, but I am not sure about the CODESA one.
All right. Agreement is not a point of timidity, Mr. Walters.
No,
as you can see, 1913 is in the Constitution. When people talk about reviewing the Constitution, it's not because they are wanting to be unconstitutional. They are beginning to pinpoint at a mutually created hindrance that could be a stumbling block. What is your view on the fact that it's in there?
My point is this. I don't believe it's a hindrance to address those historical issues. It's not. You make a policy, you look at, let's say if today nothing stops, for example, the government to come up with a policy looking at, say, the Khoisan people and undergoing or putting a land reform project in place to deal with that particular situation. That's not the Constitution is not an obstacle. I think that's the point I'm making. There's also no. Of course, it's not. God. It's busy speaking.
Constitution is not God.
Of course not. There's of course not. There's of course not a problem, and this is now what also responds to your interjection. Of course, a society evolves. Of course, it's not per nature unconstitutional to discuss changes to the Constitution. But my point is this: you don't say one thing 3 months before an election. For example, the way the African National Congress motivated the expropriation bill, that it's constitutional, and then right before an election you sound like it's all of a sudden negotiable again. That's what I'm saying. If a constitution evolves in the manner that was described, it must be part of an ongoing, as I said earlier, ongoing interaction of people hearing one another. Not before an election, not before an election, not before an election, not to score points. And not when, and I'm debating with the ANC, I want to debate with a crocodile, not a lizard.
All right, okay. All right, I'm going to take a couple of hands, and I actually welcome comments as well. But I need introductions, and I also need concise comments. I am going to start with the ladies. I'm going to start with the CEO of Dr. J.L. Dube Institute, Ms. Thandi Ngobo. I'm going to go to the lady in the black and yellow T-shirt, and I am going to come here to Ubabala. For now. Can we do it in the order that I suggested? Mike there. It's fine. I'm going to go on.
Thank you, Professor Stoll. Thank you very much. Mine is a direct question.
Can we be ordered, please?
Mine is a direct question to all political parties. As the Institute, we've submitted a a proposal to review subsection 7 of section 25 of the Constitution. Are we in agreement? Are you going to support us? Because we still have to debate this in Parliament. Are you going to support the Institute?
Concise. Lady there? Can you move the mic there? Ms. Ngobo was introduced by me. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, so.
My name is Mangu Nohoka. My question is to basically all the parties that are currently in Parliament. They are so bogged up with the date of 1913, and it is a problem. We know for a fact that Land Dispossession Act for black people actually happened in 1652. If we are saying we are going to redress the issue of the land, why don't we go back to 1652 and not be bogged up to 1913, because that is where the problem is.
I am Edward Mungadi from IFP, but I will speak on behalf of the church because here we are celebrating the man who was a minister of religion, and John Langalbalele, a minister of religion and principal of a school. I want to illustrate to this house that it is true that the elephant is in the house. Not the elephant I'm wearing. Not the elephant I'm wearing, but the elephant I'm going to illustrate. My church was here in Mkumba. It had land, it had a school, it had a church building. And the white municipality in 1960 bought the land. They suggested the price, they bought the land and relocated our church in Wamash and Umlazi. In September last year, the municipality, the eThekwini municipality, has given the church with other two churches, my church and other two churches, 6 months, starting from September, up to March this year. 6 months to buy the land. And this land was given to the church with a PTO. The church has a PTO, but it has been given these 6 months to buy now. If they don't buy now, municipality will sell the land. So that is what I'm trying to say, that the problem is here and now. I'm speaking on behalf of the people who cannot speak for themselves. And the last thing is that I would ask Professor Msimang to tell us the position, what the position is for communal land by IFP. IFP has a position on communal land. What does that mean to us? Thank you.
Okay. I'll take 3 more questions. Comments are welcome. Gentlemen there.
The elephant in the room in the back.
And the gentleman there. I am going to come there at the back. You start there.
She's facing what we as politicians face every day. It's
It appears that time is an important resource here as well, but we will only manage if we are concise. Introduction and a concise comment.
Okay, thanks. My name is Sipodi Bakwani. Well, the inputs from the political parties, when one sits here, you can clearly see that we are integrated into the international capitalist system, because we have not even come up with a new solution. We seem to be wanting to tweak there and there. That is my first comment. But my main point is that I think all the political parties except the DA do want to address the issue of the land, but in different ways. What I want to put a challenge, probably something for as homework for the ruling party, is that when you then go back to Parliament, will you then push that Section 25 and other related matters to the land that we are going to change it? And will we see the UTM, the EFF, and all of them that are in Parliament supporting that for the first time? Will we see that just for our people? Let's actually let go of egos and everyone. Let us just do it for our people. I mean, in Bielokshi, the only piece of land is the square in my 4-room where I grew up. That's the only piece of land which I must share with my mother, my father, and everyone.
Point taken.
Can we see that, please, from the political parties?
All right. The mic there. Here first, and then we come to you.
Lady in blue.
Thank you. Is this working? I don't think it's working.
Can we have a working mic there?
Please. No. Thank you. My name is Nicole Graham. I'm a councillor here in eThekwini. My question is for the EFF. Consistently, you've complained about the corruption, maladministration of the ANC. But the kind of system you propose where the government basically owns all land and all industry is one that has repeatedly shown itself throughout history to create corrupt governments where politicians get richer and have all the power and people get poorer and lose their freedom. How do you advocate for a system of complete state ownership and control and ensure that the EFF aren't the ones that get rich and the politicians aren't the ones who make all the money off the resources you talk about?
Okay. The other question was there.
Igama lami nguSiphethihle kaChongo oqhamuka endaweni ethiwa iseMalikazi. Umbuzo wami uzobheka kwi-EFF. Kodwa ngifuna ukuthi ngenze nje comment encane lapha kumama Ayanda Dlodlo ukuthi uma ekhuluma nge-land question ubeka i-national interest phambili. Ukuthi thina njengazakhamuzi zase-South Africa sesikubonile lokho abakubiza nge-national interest ukuthi sibabonile mabenza lento ye-land redistribution bethatha abantu abanjengomama Mthani Modise bebafaka le emafamu ko-Northwest ukuthi abahambayo ubulala iy'ngulube. Siphinde sabona bethatha abantu bevumela ukuthi abantu bathatha abantu bavumela ukuthi abantu bahlale emjondolo babadlula usuku nosuku kodwa bengafuni ukubakhipha. Umbuzo wami kula ukuthi i-EFF kule question ehlezi ibuzwa abantu ukuthi i-EFF is going to chase abantu abamhlophe away if ithatha umhlaba in a form of a state. Is that true yini? Lokho ngicabanga ukuthi ke kusabisa uMr Thomas njengoba eresista kangaka ehleli lapha mhlawumbe akuzazi ukuthi kahle kahle inhloso ye-EFF yini. Bengicela lapha i-EFF ukuthi sichazele lapha. Ngiyabonga.
All right. I'm going to ask for brief responses, then I will take the last 3 questions.
Thank you. There were 2 questions by Dr. Mgadi. The first question is, what is the position?
Can we settle down and listen to our responses?
What is the position where the municipality is demanding that the people who rightfully own land, where there are churches in Kwamashu and Umlazi, they should now buy that property? It is illegal as far as that land was in compensation of the land taken away from them in Umkumbane. Then coming to the position of the IFP regarding communal land. We are very strong on maintaining that communal land ownership should stay. In fact, the prevailing views here are very similar to communal land ownership, because we maintain that the land belongs to the people, to the community, but the traditional leader is the custodian, and he distributes land to citizens according to their needs. That is communal land ownership. I say the prevailing view here seems to support that idea. And it should, because this is an African way of land tenure, rather than the individual land ownership which came from the West.
Okay.
The prevailing view I'm talking about is the one that says, let the state take over the land. That is what happens in communal land ownership. It's taken by the traditional leadership, but on behalf of the people. And the prevailing view was that once the state has taken over the land, it will distribute it to people according to their needs, according to their applications. That is the standpoint of the IFP. Thank you.
Mr. Filtani, everyone was asked a question, so I will go like this. There was at least one question that was applicable to all, which is, will you support an amendment to the Constitution? That one is very short and sweet.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity. It is only someone who is absolutely selfish who wants to take the concept of private ownership to the highest level and keep 80% of the people out of South Africa who would not support that. That should have been done years ago. Okay. We are 100% behind it. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Dlamini, a couple of questions were to you.
Yeah, no, thanks. The institution, we won't support you. We are leading. That's right.
Okay. All right.
Of saying, let's talk to the issue of constitutional amendment.
Can we hear the panelists?
To say, let's talk to the issue of constitutional amendment. Actually, even Section 25 is in contradiction with itself, because Section 25.1, it clearly states in broad that no one must be deprived of land. Then you go to Section 25.7, then it talks to 1913. So it's a mess. It's in contradiction of itself. That's why we said we are calling for constitutional amendment, that we must expropriate land without compensation. And we are saying that, again, that Section 25.3b of the Constitution, it says before you can talk of any expropriation, you must go and address the issue how that land was acquired. How the land was acquired in South Africa. Everyone knows white people, they stole it from black people. So the issue of Section 25, it doesn't arise that we must do it. But again, you know, ANC people, they got this thing that we just marched from somewhere. We're coming from there in the ANC. We told them that let's go for constitutional amendment. And they agreed. They said, no, the issue is that we don't have two-thirds majority. That's why we said, no, it's fine. We'll go to the ground, mobilize society. That
the question is whether you will remove certain people, chase away certain people, and there's fear around that?
No. But maybe let me clarify the issue for white people.
It didn't come from me.
Yeah, no. We'll never chase anyone. Okay. The white people, what they need to understand is that we made peace with white people. We did not fall in love with white people. So we are not going to compromise anything at the expense of black people. That is why that we are saying we are on a deliberate agenda to uplift black people. Okay. So that is why that's why they need to deal with it. But my brothers, I'm saying to you that we will support that, because even when we went to Parliament, we said to ANC, before we came to Parliament, you don't have two-thirds majority. Here's our 6% two-thirds majority. Let's amend the Constitution. We'll go back to where we come from.
Okay.
They refused because they're not courageous. They're scared of white people. They must not be scared. But the issue of corruption. Lastly, the issue of corruption.
You are not loved, but you are. There's peace with you. But what is your view on the issue of support on the view of 1913?
I made it very, very clear. The issue is not the Constitution. The issue is getting policies that make land. That made it very clear. What I will say is that if we have a proper conversation about land reform, ongoing conversation in the manner that was described earlier on, where as a society we evolve solutions, then one can have that debate. But the point is this: we don't believe we're at that moment. Let's first make the Constitution work. It's drafted to support land reform. I don't agree with the argument that it's this big obstacle. Our policies failed, not our Constitution. Okay. Then the other point that I wanted to make, there was a remark made, we might not support this change in the Constitution. but there was a remark equating that as if we're not supporting land reform. It's an objective fact that where the DA governs, land reform works. It's an objective fact. And I can bring it up. It's an objective fact.
To the people of the Western Cape.
All right, we will all get a chance.
60% of our land
We
reform,
will get a chance.
according to the ANC government's own figures, work.
All
It's
right,
a fact.
Mr. Professor Mosala.
Thanks a lot. I just thought I'll do a little bit of helping here as well.
Restore the peace.
My comrade there, you know, logic is nice, but logic is not truth. So it's okay, it's fine. But that's all right. We are comrades in arms. I want to underscore what the Secretary General of the Azanian People's Organization, Azapo, said there earlier on, that we don't even want to talk about 1800. We want to go beyond. She mentioned 1652. It's actually even earlier. The Portuguese came from the other side. The Dutch came at 1652 this side, but in the 1500s already, the Portuguese were smuggling themselves into our country, into our community from the other side. So we must find the furthest possible point of contact with Africa by white people and go back to that point, because as soon as they touched our land, colonialism started and dispossession started. So we must do further research. You never trust white people. They may have been here in the 1200s without us knowing. So we must go back. So, and you see on the...
In the interest of time, can we hear the panelists? All of them?
And finally, it has become very clear that this constitution is weak. So it's not about even amending the constitution. I think we need a new constitution.
All right. Can we try and settle down as best as possible so we can hear and even take the last round of questions? Mr. Mkutama.
Absolutely. We'll support any suggestion to change the constitution to make sure black people get land. That we will do. But if I was a white man like this man, I would myself support the current constitution because it protects me. The only reason why he's going on like this, he wants to keep on stolen property which is protected by the constitution. He represents thieves, land thieves in this country. So he will not support anything that suggests that we take back our land. But Baba, we'll talk about Umhlaba Mkomban. It is an election year this year. All these politicians talk nice because they want your votes. Now, I have a proposal to black people. Do not listen to any politician that says, vote for me, I will give you land. Let us use these 2 months. 2 months before my elections. You know where you took the land? Go back there, mobilize the community, go and reoccupy your land. You know where your land was taken. You know where you must go back to. Let us, those who are politicians, with politician solutions, they say vote for us. Okay. Those who are revolutionary solution, suggest that we know where the land was taken from. Let us go back and take our land. If you wait for politicians, all right, you will wait forever.
Dama? Point head, very loud and clear. Okay. Ms. Lodlo?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, there's a direct question on support.
Earlier I said, if you're going to look at issues of land, you can't just look at Section 25, subsection 7. Because everything that precedes that and follows that becomes problematic. So we have to look at it in totality. And that's what I said from the beginning. The willing buyer, willing seller issue talks about, amongst other things, determining market value. Now, if you just drive by, and I had a conversation earlier on, you drive from Johannesburg to Pretoria. How much of that land, how much value has been added? Who is going to be able to afford to buy that land today? If it was your piece of land repossessed, or you were dispossessed of your land, how are you going to afford to buy using that principle of the willing buyer, willing seller on market value? Now, this expropriation needs to take those issues into account. And that's what this bill seeks to do. But over and above that, if something like what is being presented to us by the Institute today comes before Parliament, be rest assured, if it is in the interest of our people, which I think it is, it will get the support of the ruling party, the African National Congress.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, I will not allow a long break because it's a very short ad that we are going to, but we do have a very short break and we will take the last round of questions. Anyway, don't go. Please don't go anyway. It's a very short break.
Two.
I know. I didn't realize the sitting order was. You are. This is the last round, which includes you, and I completely ignored the back there. And so it's going to be actually 5 questions. It's going to be you, Zokala Gan, the 2 of you, and 3 people at the back. That's it. Okay. Ningabi ke bade kakhulu. Oh.
Two, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2, D. Yeah, on our side, it's.
Quick. Siqeda ngoba isikhathi. Anongibuza ukuthi siqeda ngoba isikhathi bese ngiyangisayinela. Okay. So 1 minute anyway. Siqeda ngoma. Okay. All right. Okay. Are we wrapping up now after this round?
After this round, do we wrap up?
There's 6 people that are out. Yeah.
How many minutes left? There's 30 minutes left for the next section.
Okay. All right. Good.
30 seconds to us.
All right.
Cameras over there.
Okay. Can we please settle down and maintain order? In true South African style of conversation, we are continuing with the land debate at the Dube Institute at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. A couple of comments are due, which will enhance this discussion moving forward, and the panelists are ready for our questions. We will start at the back. The gentleman in bright yellow at the middle, the gentleman at the far end in light yellow, and we will go at the front here. There are people that have never had the chance to speak here who have no T-shirts, the 3 in this order. Okay, let's do that. Start at the back. My panelists will be ready to respond after this round.
Thank you. My name is Lutando Swana. My comment that I want to make is that we must be clear that as the African National Congress, we are a non-racial and a democratic, non-sexist Congress movement. So the fact that we must divide people according to color cannot be correct. We understand that the land issue must be dealt with. And we can see that there is a spark somewhere there, where as the ANC, as the leader of society, we must use our influence to show them the light. And we must lead the process, because it can never be taken into consideration, or it can never be the case that we must remember that in CODESA we made certain things, or we took certain decisions as compromises. Now we need to go back to our constitution and look at how we must change that constitution, because society has changed over time. But it can never be the fact that we can allow a toxic collusion between some political parties who don't want to put this issue on the table. But the ANC as the leader must play the role in making sure that they show the people their light, and it must be done in the right way as a civilized society.
Gentleman at the corner.
Sanibona. Umzomuhle wakwaDube. Cha, ngizokwenza comment nje. We have to actually decide whether we want to pragmatize or dramatize the progress. I am saying this because you find other people actually putting up their hands and saying no to any amendment in terms of the transformation and acceleration of the program that has been started by the ANC already. We know we have governed, we know we have led the society, we know what needs to be strengthened. What is happening now with Section 25 will accelerate a program that has already started. So if we're going to dramatize it, it definitely will play to our emotions for ordinary and people who really will benefit from the system. I think we know exactly what we're all about. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. It's not a crime not to wear a T-shirt, so I'm going to this particular row now with 3 people in this row. Starting here. I have gone to everywhere else. Okay. Can we, please? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is a comment and a question. My name is Musa Mfus. As a citizen of this country, and having been listening to the political representatives, it is very clear that there is consensus that something needs to be done about 1913. But again, I think it's going to take another 10 years maybe to agree as to where do we peg it. I just want to ask a question to your panel, Chair. Why are we keeping any date? Because if there was dispossession, why then should there be any person who by an error, we may not know when he was dispossessed? Why don't we just do away with the date? And then we allow all people who were dispossessed of their land to put their claims through. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Zeitskachi Somotene. I come from Rustenburg, from the Bafokeng Nation. Our story is a classic case of land dispossession in South Africa. It's been written about quite widely, studied by a whole lot of academics, even internationally. Because our land was not just dispossessed by anyone, but we had 36 farms that were registered by Paul Kruger. And that is before 1860, that we could not claim. And that is our land, we have to get it back. We all agree that the Achilles heel in relation to land restitution is the date of 13 June 1913. I think Mr. Walters also agrees. If he thinks the date is not a problem, then let's get it out of the Constitution, because it does not belong there. You know, we've been talking past each other as a nation for the past 22 years. This is high time that we come together to deal with this question once and for all. And in dealing with it, we must appreciate that when we talk inland, before Britain took the Cape Colony, there were no white people inland in South Africa. That is a fact. And black people, with their benevolence, were abused, because white people came and started registering land in their own names. They talk about buying land. Buying from whom? because black people never had the principle of selling land to anyone. So there's no way that anybody could have bought land. People just came and registered farms in their own names.
Okay.
So let us find, if there were sunset clauses in the Constitution, it's now time for sunrise clauses. And 20 years of a Constitution, I mean, we have defined today issues in the Constitution that are inconsistent with the spirit of the Constitution. Let us review and have those removed. My last point is that there has been a commission of Judge Nhlapo, which actually defined traditional leadership and restored leaders who were deposed. I have seen a document which was a report to the Queen, written in 1904, which defined traditional communities all over South Africa and how they are going to be dispossessed, using all manner of possibilities, including using religion. Now, we need a second phase of that commission, which needs to now look at defining the land of traditional communities. Once that land is defined, right up to the 1400s, or as Prof. Mosala said, we should not take a chance on putting a date. It must be reviewed right up to the beginning of this country. And then that land is returned to the traditional communities. And everybody, including white people, need to be part of this process.
All right.
Because we all belong in South Africa, we are all victims of circumstances in this matter of land dispossession.
Okay. All right. Many of these were comments. There are people at the corner there that have been completely ignored. I'll take two hands from there. Two questions there. There's a hand there. Gentleman with the green jacket. And the gentleman with the brown jacket. There's one hand this side. There's one, Gala.
My name is Nentantla Mangele. My name is Nentantla Mangele. Mr. Dlamini speaks of uplifting black people. How can you uplift black people when you're talking about giving the land to the states? I mean, we are gathered here because land is an issue, and it is an issue because it does not belong to its rightful owners, which are black people. And if you are giving it to the state, I, who have a problem, which land was stolen by a white man, how am I going to retrieve my land? Must I go and apply to the states? How is justice going to be served for me being a black person? That is my question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Can you have an introduction?
Yes, my name is Siyabonga Kontwana. We are here as both the ANC Youth League and the ANC. So I want to remind people of South Africa, first and foremost, that as early as 2007, the ANC Youth League had already started discussing the issue of land. And in fact, the Youth League made a very clear call of expropriating land without compensation at that time of 2007, 2008, up to 2010, where the ANC had a National General Council.
Can you expect voice, please?
Where the ANC had a National General Council here in Durban. The ANC, because the ANC Youth League, which was raising an issue of land and nationalization of mines, the ANC had to adopt it. And it adopted it in the NGC of the ANC in 2010, which meant then the ANC gave a clarity to say, because now the issue is no more with the ANC Youth League, it's with the ANC. The ANC has to do an investigation and make sure that the issue is clearly researched so that the ANC will take drastic steps in terms of addressing the land question. Now I'm happy with this platform. I wanted to say I'm happy with this platform because it's part of the consultations which are to be done by the ANC in order to ensure that when we reach consensus, as the ANC now, to say, as the majority party and as the leading party in South Africa, we're going to amend our constitution. and make sure that our land
Thank you,
go
Mr.
back to our people.
Thank you very much.
So I want to say.
Let's take one.
No, lastly,
question there.
Lastly, I want to say, if people
Mr.
are saying,
your point has been taken.
Okay, no thanks.
Can you go there? I want my panelists to respond. Can you give a mic there?
Thank you very much.
Can you give the mic to the gentleman at the back, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. So the first comment would to say, we appreciate the platform that has been given. We think it's a very progressive environment. However, when white people came, history tells us, when white people came, they never only took the land. So not only the land, they also raped our sisters, raped our mothers, stolen goats, stolen cattle and livestock.
We've had a view from a gentleman who hijacked the mic. Can we give that gentleman the mic, please?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Can we respect voice, please? I appeal to South Africans to respect voice on this matter.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Usiphe sihle KwaZulu lokhulumayo. Every time abantu bekhuluma, they remind me of what Malcolm has said. He said there are two types of niggers. There's a house nigger and a field nigger. And a house nigger will always try to protect the master. But the field nigger will say, if the house of the master is burning, it must burn. And they will burn. Right. What my point is, I'm really worried when the black people who have their ancestors who have been dispossessed of this land, they are saying, no, please, let's try, this is my boss anyway, let's try another way of doing it.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And we even put it in our constitution. Let me tell you about it.
Mr. Zulu, my house is burning in terms of time. Your point is taken. Can we now hear? We got the gist of the comment, Mr. Zulu. Thank you very much. I would like to give each panelist not more than 60 seconds to really comment on these comments and wrap up. I'll start with you, Professor Msimang.
Thank you, Madam Program Director. I would like to say that we in the IFP do recognize that the date of 2013 has got disadvantages for the dispossessed, and therefore it has to change. But as we did when we got that clause into our constitution, we started with CODESA, where there was some meeting of minds. And we will need a CODESA in order to get the meeting of minds as to how back we should go. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Filtana?
Thank you, sir. Okay. The position of the UDM is very clear on this.
Yes.
We need to amend the Section 25(7) as soon as possible. A jurist that I consulted before coming here suggested that we should go as far back as we can ascertain through research exactly when the dispossession started. Okay. And the political commentator, well known, suggested that we should put our minds together and find a peaceful solution because nobody wants war again. Thank you.
Mr. Dlamini?
No,
in short?
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, sometimes these debates will come here that we're going to argue and debate with people. But when everyone agrees with us, with everything that we say, it's like we are speaking to ourselves, but we are used because we are ready to take power. The issue of the land, as we are clearly saying that amend Section 25 of the Constitution, expropriate land without compensation. We need to give back the land to our rightful owners, the black people, because we are sitting here. The issue is that everything has been said. It's been over 350 years that we're talking of the same issue. That is why we're saying, I'm glad that the minister is agreeing with me. Maybe he's going to ask the president not to sign that bill. He must just go and take what EFF presented in Parliament, and then he can sign it after.
We appreciate the agreement. Mr. Walters?
We believe, as I said right in the beginning, the debate should be how can we make land reform work. We believe there's an ongoing discussion, not just a snapshot in history, one event, an ongoing CODESA that's necessary to make land reform work. And we are proud to say that we're not going to allow the Constitution to be a lightning conductor and a Clause 25 a lightning conductor away from the real debate. And that's what's happening in an election time.
Professor Musala?
Yes, ma'am. Azapo believes that the repossession of the land is essential to making the freedom and liberation of our people meaningful. The economy will not get anywhere without the repossession of the land. The freedoms of our people will not be grounded in anything without the repossession of the land. So we support the Institute in addressing this issue of the land, but we also want to warn that unless the land issue is sorted out in this country, the patience of our people will run out, and Azapo will be there to support them to take the land.
Mr. Mkatama?
There are two solutions to the land question, and we agree completely with Ubabu Zulu there. It is the House Negro solution, which is the politician solution, which is vote for me, I will sort you out later. There is the revolutionary process, which is the field Negro solution. We must take the land now. We can't wait for the politicians. We must organize ourselves. Let us use the 2 months, because now the politicians are not going to take, you see, they're not going to fight us. They all want us to vote for them. When we go occupy land, the ANC will not bring the police, and everybody else must support us. Let us occupy our land. This is the only solution. This is the revolutionary solution. Let us reject the politician solution, because if we wait for politicians, we'll wait forever.
Okay. Ms. Jojo?
Thank you, ma'am.
Can we respect voice, please?
Can you please listen to the leader of society? President Zuma is the one president that has placed before Parliament, a bill that seeks to deal with land expropriation.
Yes.
He is the one president that has done that. He is going to be the one president that supports what has been brought to us today by the Institute John Langagibalele Dube.
Okay.
The EFF must come and talk to us without bringing issues for trading. Let us have a decent conversation, an honest conversation on issues and not that of trading horses.
We did in Parliament.
So, no, you didn't. So when you come to us, let's talk about the issues that you place before us. Let us have a decent conversation, because sitting here, I seem to hear that almost all of us, except the DA, agrees on this issue.
With EFF.
So let us go together, EFF, follow the ANC, and we will deal with this issue. Thank you.
All right, okay. All right, can you settle down, please? There you have it, South Africa. The people have spoken at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, initiating a debate on land issues. As you can see, we have moved from extreme and polarized positions, and we have also explored midway positions that seem to take the country forward. What is interesting in all of this debate is level-headedness, the mission to seek for solutions, the love of the country, and a clear desire to solve the issues for all. With those words, and with due thanks given to the Dube Institute for giving us this platform as South Africans, we thank you very much for your conversations this evening, and we hope that you take constructive conversations forward to communities. Thank you very much.